What's up, team? Glad everybody's on, man. Thank you guys for joining in. You got a lot of people jumping on. I just need to talk amongst yourselves. Oh my God. Didn't know I was going to get coffee. Thank you. Is Mitch on?
Yes, sir. Right here.
All right, cool. Here's kind of the format, and I think Pastor Chris will be jumping on here in just a second, unless he's already on and I don't know it. I'm just working to send him the link one more time, just make sure you got it. Oh, Pastor Chris, you're on. Right on. Great. He answered me. Nice. Basically, the format will be, I'll start. Hey, PC, thank you so much for doing this. Basically, we got a lot of guys still jumping on, tons more coming on. Basically, what's going to happen is Daniel's kind of helping us host the chat room. Carla will be posting any important points, scriptures, things like that. So she'll be blazing through that. And then Mitch will be taking your questions via chat. So if you want to make sure your question is seen, just send it directly to Mitch down there on the chat. I already have a ton of questions, and I'll just read through some of them right now, kind of before we get started, because I know that it'll hit a lot of what you guys are thinking about right now. If I need to cut more than discretionary spending, what method should I use to determine where and how much to cut? What things are you telling your staff to keep them focused in an ever-changing environment? Is there a system you use to determine how often and what level you communicate with your church? With all the opportunities out there, how do you stay focused on the right things for your church? How do you stay healthy when the demand seems endless? I literally probably already have 30 questions, and I know that PC is a beast at answering questions. So he has answered so many of mine. Before we jump directly into the content, I want to give you a couple of things that have helped me, and that'll give a few more guys time to jump on, because I really want them to get the gold from Pastor Chris. By the way, welcome, guys. Thank you for coming on. The heartbeat behind this is just to pull us together and to help as many people as we can. Everybody's dealing with this a little bit differently, and it's really because of the size or the reach of our churches. I talked to guys last week. They have a big church, and you would think, man, a big church is going to be able to float this thing okay. He had to lay off 40 people immediately, just because giving dipped so much. So I know that you guys are dealing with a lot of challenges. I've talked to a lot of guys who weren't prepared with video equipment, just didn't have anything. In fact, we have put together little backpacks for churches that don't have anything to broadcast with. And I think so far we have 7 of those that have gone out. We sent them out to churches, to pastors, to just help them record. I know Pastor Chris and multiple churches have actually opened their buildings for that. So, but I'll give you a few things that have helped me as we got more guys jumping on. Welcome on. And I don't know if Chad Veach, Chad, if you're on, give me a shout out. I know that my dad's on. What's up? And one of my other pastors, Pastor Mark Briggs, is on, one of our overseers. So I'm going to give you 6 things that have kind of helped me walk through this, and I'm going to give them to you really fast because I understand the powerful voice that I've got on. Number one, the thing that I've told our team is you got to step up, you got to lean in, you got to pray hard. You got to step up. Now's the time when we step up. Everything that's doable is not sustainable. So right now we're fighting for routine, and we feel like we're getting better. But this is the time to lean in. Number 2, I've told them this: good leaders acknowledge challenging seasons. So for those of you whose staff is challenged right now, maybe you don't have a staff, acknowledge, hey, this is really hard for me to walk through. You don't want to do a bunch of doom and gloom, but it is hard. It's hard for all of us. And if you don't acknowledge a challenging season, number 1, people will think you're clueless. Number 2, people will think you're trying to cover something up. So I went to our staff very early and said, listen, we're going to do our best. We believe we're going to weather this. We're going to be able to pay you right now. But I will let you know as we walk through this where we are. You got to acknowledge a challenging season. Number 3, leaders communicate more during challenging seasons. It's why we're on right now. I don't know that I consider myself a leader of leaders, but I do consider myself a pastor, and I'm talking to my leaders as much as I can. One of the things that I learned from Lee Domain, who goes to Church of the Highlands, just a beast leader, He said, look, you need to every day be communicating with your legacy team, which is your high impact givers. So we started every day, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., a Facebook group for our high impact, high capacity givers. It's been one of the best things that we've done. 15 minutes, we help them start their morning. I've taught them this exact session that I'm teaching you that will take 4 more minutes. I took 15 minutes with them, but communicate more during this season. Don't back up. People need to hear from you. One of the things that I love that Pastor Chris has been telling us is, hey, that hassle-free guarantee that we've given people, it's kind of out the window. We're checking on everybody that we can. Number 4, keep focused on the vision. Just stay focused on the vision. Now is when I've told our team, hey, look, we still love God, love people, change the world. That's our vision. Our mission hasn't changed either. The way we do that, we want people to know God, find freedom, discover their purpose, make a difference. I came up with that one time in prayer, like the Lord just gave me. Know God, find freedom, discover your purpose. All of you guys know that's Pastor Chris. But I've told them, hey, listen, our delivery system is shifted, but our mission and our vision is the same. So I've been talking to our staff about that. Number 5, we only have 6 of these, and then we'll get Pastor Chris on here. Number 5, protect the unity. Right now, I know a lot of you, because I've talked to a lot of you guys, are dealing with staffs that are actually scared to come out and shoot videos. They're scared to come out and do worship. Okay. So one of the things that I've done is, and Pastor Chris can really speak to this more than me. And I've learned from him. I've told our staff, hey, look, I don't want to make you do anything that you're uncomfortable doing, but I can't allow you being afraid to cause us to not do something. But we're going to abide by all of the guidelines and rules, and we have. But I do that to protect the unity, because it's in this season that the kind of sideways energy comes in and messes everything up. So just make sure that you keep the unity. And number 6, and then we'll just ask Pastor Chris to jump on here. Again, if you're jumping on, make sure that you open the chat there. You can chat with our guys, and then you can send your questions to Mitch Rose, who pastors a phenomenal church in Bernie, Texas, doing great, meets in a theater. So we have guys that meet in theaters, and we have guys that meet in buildings that hold thousands. Pastor Chris, my hope was to get as many of these guys on here who pastor small to medium-sized churches, so they can hear your voice, because we need your voice. And that's part of the number 6, and that is lead yourself well. In challenging seasons, it kind of causes us as leaders to think, I got this. I really don't have time to think about myself. And boy, have I gotten a wake-up call in the last week. My wife has really helped me with that. She's been just telling me every day, hey, slow down, take time for yourself, make time for yourself. I took 2 naps this week. I never take naps. It was awesome. I loved it. So Pastor Chris, I'm going to pitch it to you. And then after Pastor Chris, we'll bring Chad Veach in from a little bit of a different perspective on the West Coast. But I'm so honored to have each and every one of you guys on. And Pastor Chris, you have been such a beacon and a voice, not just in my life, but as my pastor, but with so many of us. So I want you to jump in, talk about what you want to talk about, and then we'll throw some questions at you. I'll do that. I'll moderate those questions because we have so many guys on here right now. So we're all super honored to have you. Give a weird silent hand clap to Pastor Chris.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys can hear me okay, Jeremy? Everything's good? Okay. All right.
You're great. You sound great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me be on the call. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for leaders to be leaders. I think it's actually a crisis that actually exaggerates things, so it's revealing some things that have always been there that we've never seen, because the crisis is exaggerating it. So our budgets are exaggerated, our leadership is exaggerated, or the lack thereof on both of those, or, so crisis has a way of bringing things, pressure squeezes what's on the inside out. You know what I'm saying? So we're seeing a lot of that right now. And I think the most important thing for us to do as leaders is lead ourselves. It all begins with, us taking care of ourselves, and, we're all out of our normal routines. So you have to create some new routines, or make sure you're staying true to what you used to do. So still get up, set the alarm, spend time with God, pray, study, do all those things so you can keep yourself healthy. I've been kind of shocked, honestly, seems like probably 75% of the leaders that I've been speaking to or ministering to are wide-eyed and scared themselves. And it's going to be pretty hard for us to lead people through a crisis if it's affecting us in that kind of a way. So that's my first encouragement is see this as an incredible opportunity. There have been, I did a study of 4 major plagues that have happened over the past 200 years and how the church responded to it and the different leaders that responded to it. In fact, Jeremy, I can send you this beautifully written blog, this article on these different leaders and how they faced, the Black Plague and all these different tragedies that happened over the last couple centuries. And the bottom line is, man, just have courage, see it as an opportunity. How you view things will determine how you do things. So if you view it as, man, this is not letting me do what I want. If you view this as an inconvenience, you're going to complain a lot. If you see this as an insurmountable problem, you're going to have fear a lot. But if you see this as an opportunity, it'll change everything. You'll be innovative. You'll come up with some incredible ways to reach people. And I don't think God created. My theology doesn't fit for God to have caused this. I'm not a judgment God. I think the cross of Jesus satisfied all of the wrath of God already, past, present, and future, is my personal theology. But I still think we live on a cursed earth, and God uses all of this to get a lot done. So most of the great character has been developed in suffering. That's Romans chapter 5. So we know that God's saying, well, okay, we know this is happening. Let's make the most of it. And for us, we're reaching more people. I've spoken to more pastors. I've spoken to more people in our church. We've had, these would have been spring break weeks for us, and down 20%. We've been up 200% in people's participation in our church services. So I think, again, it's important to view all of this the right way. I know probably the biggest challenges that are happening are financial, or for those that are in portable situations, and I understand that, and those are very, very unique, and all of us are in a different boat there. So there's a lot of different answers to that question based on our particular scenario, and I'm happy to help address some of those. But man, just be encouraged, guys. I mean, I would say, lift up your head. Your redemption draws nigh, and this is the time to pray. This is the time to be sensitive to people's needs, because when they're hurting, they're more open to the gospel. So let's have some fun with this and really try to reach as many people as we can. So that's my take on it, Jeremy.
Great. Thank you, PC. And we'll jump into some questions now. We have a ton of questions coming in. By the way, anything that Pastor Chris references, like that document that helped pastors get through the plague of 1918, we will put on hopecity.com/roundtable. I don't know why I just did my hand like that, but I did. hopecity.com/roundtable, and we'll put that on there. Is there a system that you use to determine how often you're communicating personally to your church? What level of communication are you using? How are you communicating with your staff during this time? What are you telling them? Those are some questions that we're getting kind of encapsulated. How are you messaging to your church as a whole and then to your staff team?
Yeah, so I do think that you need to create something that's predictable. I think if it's random, people don't know when to hear from you. So whatever it is, I would create a predictable system. I think there is the tendency in some cases for there to be a lot of white noise, I call it, because when guys just barely have a thought, they'll go do an Instagram live or whatever. I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, because if you do too much, I think they're going to tune you out. So if you're a bit more intentional, I'm not sure we have the right balance, but right now what we are doing is 3 weekly touches to our church. Number one, I'm doing a midweek video on Instagram, 3 to 5 minutes, just to say, here's what's going on right now. I think you got to be very, very careful of predicting or saying, oh, for the next 2 months. Well, you don't know the next 2 months. I would just say, hey, for this week, here's this week's news, because this thing is changing so fast. And honestly, you want to know the truth about it, I'm still expecting God to do a miracle. I truly believe in my heart something's going to happen around Passover and Easter through all the millions that have joined together in prayer. So my faith is actually high for us to see a true spiritual breakthrough. So that's one reason why I don't want to say, well, you know, for the next 3 months, we're going to, so just be careful. I'm giving them weekly updates on Wednesday through Instagram. We're doing a Saturday prayer touch, a live prayer service. Our Saturday prayer normally would be 1 hour. We've shortened it to 30 minutes, but it's worship and prayer. And that's been very, very, very popular. So it's live and then on demand. And then of course our Sunday services that we are actually producing those the day before the Sunday service. And the day before, because I want to stay relevant, again, because things are changing so much. I'm afraid if I record 3 or 4 weeks in a row, that what I say might not even be relevant anymore. So because we have that capability, we're recording on a Saturday. And the reason why we're not doing it live is because there are some unique sound adjustments you can make in post-production to make the quality really jump to another level if you can give your team just a few hours after the recording to send it through a mastering process. So that's why we're doing that, but then we're airing it at their regular service times because I want them to have some routine. I think one of the things that people want right now is as much normal as possible because very few things are normal. So we've shied away from giving them a completely different Sunday experience, you know, sitting in a chair or, you know, lower key worship, because I think there's so much changing. I think they would love to see something that's, wow, that's my Sunday, that's my church. Looks just like, so right now our Sunday flow is pretty close to exactly what it would have been live and without this problem. And so, but that's our touches right now. Now for our staff, I do a first of the week. I record it on Sunday. They usually get it on Monday, a message to them just to give them focus for the week. Here's what we're thinking for this week. Here's what I need you to do this week. So that's when I give an update to them. And I'll also give them updates throughout the week if something new exists. Last thing is our lead team is a meeting every day via Zoom. So every day we're on the, yesterday it was an hour and a half. Day before it was 10 minutes. So it's just a touch base, but we like to get together and just make sure we are communicating well. And really the best communication is being handled downline from them. So.
That's great input. Thank you, PC. How are you continuing to encourage generosity without being tone deaf, while being sensitive to people that have been laid off and things like that? I know a lot of the guys on here pastor small to medium-sized churches. Not everybody. Obviously, we got Philip Wagner and Rich Wilkerson, guys that pastor big churches on here, but a lot of the guys pastor smaller to medium-sized churches. How do we communicate to people and not sound weird?
Well, it's only been 2 weeks, first of all, so I think we're all still learning. There's not enough to say, oh, here's the trend. I think after a couple of months of this, if we're still dealing with this, be able to answer this question better. But what I would have told you before, and I'm telling you now, is that people always give to vision, not need. That's just a fact. They love to give to leaders who know what to do with it. So when we talk to our people, and right now our giving's not up, but it's not down either. It's just flat right now. And mainly because we don't have any in-person giving going on. Our online giving is actually up, significantly up, but we have almost zero in-person giving, except for we've had a couple of old people actually drive in their cars, get out with a check and walk it up to the church. Handed it to a volunteer because there's nobody at the office, and brought tears to my eyes. So our giving's flat right now. But when we communicate giving, we're just saying, hey, here's what we're doing. We're helping people, and honestly, we couldn't do it without you. And I think the more I communicate, here's what we are doing, and here's the vision we have, I think people are still motivated to give. I'm not sure people have really even seen, most people haven't even been through a pay cycle to see missing money yet. Now that we're turning the corner to a first of the month, we probably are going to see that. So I think we'll all learn in the next few weeks. But bottom line is, make sure you have vision, and make sure people love stewardship, that you're taking good care of it. So
something that I've observed you guys do, and I think is awesome. I've actually pointed our team towards it. You guys have actually taken videos from people in your church that are serving kind of on their own. I saw a child with special needs. You guys posted on the Church of the Highlands page. Some of his teachers at church put together a parade and drove by in front of his house and just honked the horn. And here's this kid out there waving. I'm just bawling. And the video wasn't well produced. It wasn't slick. It was just a dad video and his son receive a gift from your church. And I think the fact that you guys platform that helps the church know what you're doing. Because the question for a lot of us is, man, they put such a lockdown. You can't gather in groups of 10 or more. We can't send a camera crew. The camera crew is not priority on a missions trip. So I think it's great, guys. Just if you've got people that are serving, platform that. One thing that I've also seen you do, Pastor Chris, is repeat what you were doing. This is something that we're doing. So if I say it, we're doing Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. We call it Hope First. It's 15, 20 minutes with some of our staff on Instagram, Facebook Live. You go back and watch some of that. But what we're doing is we're constantly reiterating the same stuff. Hey, last week and this week, we put together 19,000 quarantine kits. I've said that 15 times in the last 3 days because people are consuming it different ways. So even if you say it once, you should say it again. Let me piggyback another question here, because you're a genius when it comes to finances. If I need to cut more than discretionary spending, what method should I use to determine where and how much to cut? Because I know a lot of these guys are having to really cut finances and budgeting. How are you looking at budgeting and staffing? And I know that it may be different. How would you look at it if you pastored 500 to 700 people and it looks like you might have to cut some things? What method would you kind of use?
Well, again, it's only been 2 weeks, so I don't think we know what we know yet, first of all. But honestly, we're saving a ton of money. I mean, the cuts are happening naturally because we're not turning on the lights. We're not turning on the air conditioning. We're not operating our facilities. So already, this problem itself has created a cut in expenses. So make sure you're looking at it from a healthy viewpoint and standpoint. And I don't think we've had enough weeks to know what the giving trends are going to be, or when and if this stimulus bill passes and how that's going to affect. It's already affected the market going up three days in a row. So I don't know. We really don't know. But bottom line is, you want to make sure that you reduce it down to the absolutes. And the absolutes are, taking care of your people and pastoral care. So your staff and pastoral care. And I would beg you not to cut any of your missions efforts, because I think, to me, those are a priority. But I think if we get to the place where we are going to have to cut, I'm not anticipating that, really, but if we have to, I think you can do some across the board percentage cuts. But for me, my ethics would say, but not to those that are at the bottom. I think you take the top 2/3 of the wage earners in your organization and start with them, and the people that are making, just enough to get by. It doesn't seem fair, especially if you still need them on your teams. So I don't know if I'm answering your question right or not, but that's how we're going to approach it should we ever get to that point.
That's great. What are you preaching right now? Are you doing a series? How far out are you planning? I know we're week to week. We got Easter coming up. A lot of guys are wanting to know, hey, what are y'all doing for Easter? What should we be doing for Easter? I know for us, it's a little different. If we had a stage, we'd probably do church on that stage. We don't. We're portable. So we're in a hotel. Thankfully, we've gotten a high-rise penthouse suite for $110. So they blessing us. But that's where we're shooting because we kind of have to. How are you planning for Easter, and what are you preparing to preach if this thing rocks on for a few more weeks?
I've intentionally not let myself get that far ahead because I think things are changing day to day. So I'm studying a lot, and I have probably 5 different Easter ideas, and our teams are ready with testimonies. We've always featured testimonies, and we're kind of working on the music right now as well, because we were doing that before all this. but I'm actually not allowing myself to get a message ready because I think some more things are going to happen in the next few weeks that we need to speak to. So we're in a series right now that we had planned before all of this happened called God of Miracles. And so we're staying in that. Again, I think people want normal. I think people want on Easter, I think they want to dress their kids up in pastels and bow ties. And I think we ought to be thinking that. I think you would touch their hearts if we weren't still in crisis and triage mode, but we were in, hey, let's figure out a way for you to still enjoy your Easter, you know, and hope you get your kids dressed up, even though they're staying in your living room right there, you know, just anything like that. I think people want to feel some normal. I can't say it enough. And we have done that. I actually watched about 30 church services this past Sunday, and I watched some of them go drastically different from what they normally do. And I saw some that were very much the same. And all I can tell you is the ones that captured my heart and engaged me were the ones that were more high energy, more of what I would normally get, where the worship was vibrant. I think people want that. So this Sunday, I'm actually doing the miracle of the calming of the storm, and I'm going to use it to talk about settle some theological issues, like, you know, is this God's judgment? Does a problem always mean this is, you know, God's mad? And the first thing you see in this story is that Jesus initiated the disciples to get into the boat, and he was in there as well. So if the storm was judgment, then Jesus was in sin too, because he was in the boat too when the storm happened, you know. And so we're going to talk through some of those issues, but I think the bottom line is,
can I interrupt you? Just jump in here and ask the question that every guy wants to ask right now is, can we just have your sermon notes? We'll just preach what you preach.
Yeah, it's actually shaping up to be pretty good, because there were 3 different storms going on at the same time. There was the physical storm, the actual wind and waves, but there was also an emotional storm going on, because the disciples, the Bible says, they were afraid. But then there was also a spiritual storm going on, because they asked Jesus, do you intend to let us drown? So their theology was bad. So they had all, and I think society has all 3 things going on. I think we have a physical storm called coronavirus, but I think we have an emotional storm called fear. But also think we have a spiritual storm going on, thinking, why isn't God listening to us? Why don't you care that we drown? And Jesus used that. Before he ever spoke to the storm, he spoke to the disciples. So his first words, before he ever said, peace, be still, he said, why do you have such little faith? And I think God is using this to shape some things on the inside of us. And we'd be fools just to speak the message of have faith over fear. We need to say, God's trying to teach all of us something. He's trying to teach us how to live in the middle of storms and let our character be built. And again, you never know what's on the inside of you until you're in a pressure situation. True. And so I think this is a great time to deepen our church and their discipleship in a great way. So anyway, there's a little preview.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and stream you live this weekend, if that's okay. Actually, I think that's a good point. There are some guys who don't have video capabilities. Now would be a good time to reach out to pastors who you respect and who you love. I bet right now is a good time that they would create a little video for you, and you could play their service on the weekend, that you could play their preaching on the weekend. Have you guys done that for anybody, Pastor Chris?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is what needs to happen when churches aren't able to actually produce service. I actually started the service off welcoming the churches that were joining us, and actually told them and said, now look, when we get to the giving portion of this service, don't give to Highlands. You need to give to your local church. And they had higher giving than they would have normally had, because someone on the outside was saying, hey, this is important. You need to support your local church right now. Don't give to this one just because you're watching this service. We're glad you're with us, but support your local church right now. They need you.
I love that heartbeat. So if you're stressed out about the weekend, and maybe you just launched your church in the last year and you're like, man, I don't know what to do here. Play Church of the Highlands, and you can intro it. Y'all can host it and Play Church of the Highlands to your church. I think that's a great thing. Another question, and that is, what metrics are you guys tracking? Because this is so new. I know we're tracking unique views, and then we're tracking anything beyond 3 seconds. And then we're tracking the actual average amount of time that people are watching. We're tracking first-time guests. We're tracking new givers. We're tracking everything that we can. And by the way, all of that information is available at hopecity.com/virtual roundtable. You can go on. We're providing everything that we can. If you have something, a great document, give it to us. We'd love to provide that. But what metrics are you guys tracking? And is there any way that you're fostering innovation in that with your team?
Nothing more than what you just said, and we're tracking all the same things. One of the things that I'm very concerned about right now that we're tracking is pastoral care, is that we want every person in our church who has a need that we could meet. So we really are trying to get information from them of situations perhaps where elderly are shut in, or single moms or have their kids at home so they couldn't go to work, or they're out of work. And so I think those are I think we're somewhat still in a little bit of a triage situation where, you know, this catastrophe happened. I think there's still some paper swirling in the air from this tornado called coronavirus. And so I would say, again, don't get too far ahead without first making sure we haven't taken care of the people that are still in need right around us that are hurting from this storm. So.
Have you shifted your staff? I mean, obviously you've shifted your staff's responsibilities, but how have you done that? Are you placing them all through the online care team now? Or are you asking them to use social media to help reach out? How are you shifting your staff?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually we called it redeploy. So there's a lot of our team that their job was based off of the fact that we have service in buildings, and now they're kind of out of work in that role. And I've told every one of them, I have every intention of keeping you on team. I don't want to lose you, but I will have to move you, and just ask them to be very flexible. And we've moved a large portion of our staff to pastoral care and just making phone calls and just going literally. Anyone who has filled out a connection card or has given anything since January is receiving a personal touch.
How is that? Are y'all calling them? Or are you emailing, texting?
Yeah, just phone calls. We just, because we want to hear their voice. We want them to hear ours. And we're just saying, hey, can we pray with you about anything? And there's literally been zero pushback. I mean, people have loved this personal touch, and just to know that we care. And so actually, I think, again, in some weird way, we're pastoring more people better than we ever have. And definitely bringing the gospel to more people than we ever have, which has kind of put me in a little bit of a good mood about this thing. I mean, I'm tired of sitting at home. I'm tired of being quarantined, but we're really getting a lot done. So I think it's important to have a good attitude about it.
Do you have any staff members who have coronavirus, or pastor friends who have it? How are you pastoring them through it? I know we have guys on the call right now who either have it, have been tested, or in quarantine. How would you encourage them? How do we pastor people that have the coronavirus?
Yeah, we have had several of our staff members test positive for it. We had two families who had actually gone down to the beach together, and they contracted it on their spring break vacation, and they were together. So just give. Like you said when you started the call, if anyone has any concern about feeling sick, being sick, has children sick, we are extending to them, stay home, take care of yourself, don't fear for your job or your income, get well. And anyone who has any concern about coming to work that are healthy, we were giving them, at least in this 15 days to slow the spread season and the season that the president has us in, we're giving them the freedom, like, you know what, you just stay home. If that's where your conscience is and you don't want to be out at all, then we're not putting any pressure on people to do that. But I have a guy on staff, Jeremy, that one pastor who just pastors our staff. And because we're just, our team is large enough where we really needed that. It's been about a year now where I've had one of my lead pastors who just pastors the staff. So that's how we're taking care of those families.
That's great. How do we know in this season, and I don't know that you can answer this, is maybe spitting in the wind, but how do we know if we're winning or not? I mean, where's the goal line? Because it's moved so much. Used to, it was kind of church attendance and small groups and, growth track. And I don't know that anybody knows what to do with growth track or membership class right now. How do we know, like, hey, that was a win? Obviously, if you get a lot of views, but I mean, who knows?
Again, I'm not allowing myself to get too far ahead.
Okay.
I'm not even going there yet, because I think we're only really 10 days into this thing, really, and maybe 2 weeks. And so I don't think we even know what we think we know. I think we have to go through a season. I think by mid-May, when we're about 8 weeks into this thing, I think as we kind of enter into the summer months, whether this curve has bent or not, whether they allow large gatherings, and we're kind of taking our cues off of things like sports. When baseball goes back, we're going to be able to go back. I don't think churches can follow the trends of business, because business can kind of go back and still have this 6 feet apart and no more than 10 people in a room. But that's not our reality. We're following the cues of when they allow the movie theaters to open again, and when do they allow the sport, when hockey's filling a stadium again, then the church is going to be able to fill our buildings again. So we're going to be in it for a little bit of a longer haul than even like the business world is going to be, or when schools go back, so that's another indicator, because again, anytime you have large numbers of people in a small space, we're following those cues. And so I just don't think we know what we know. So what I'm doing myself is I am prepared for all the different models, if you will. I'm prepared for this thing to go to the end of summer. I'm prepared for this thing to break by Easter. I think it would be prudent of all of us to just kind of go through those different models and be prepared.
How are you managing yourself at this time? And I know a lot of guys, and I'll let this kind of be the last question for you, or maybe one more, but how are you managing yourself? Your kids are all grown. A lot of us have small kids. They're seeing dad around all the time. Our wives are seeing us all the time, and everything feels very, very important. How do we manage ourselves during this time?
Yeah, so I think it's very important that you have your morning. If you'll master your morning, it'll take care of the rest of the day. All's well that starts well. It's not all's well that ends well. It's all's well that starts well. And I think if you master the first 3 hours of your day, time with the Lord, time in worship, time in study, and just follow your routine. Just because we're all off, this isn't the time to sleep late and to Netflix binge. This is the time to get the thing done that we said we'd do if we weren't so busy. All of us have said, man, if I wasn't so busy, I'd write that. Well, now you go write that book then. This is the time to actually get some things done. So I'm actually trying to organize every day as if I was going to the office. I wake up every day. I get dressed every day. I shave every day. I'm just going through my routine. I'm trying to write every day. I have certain meetings that I have every day. I have a point in the day where I turn everything off. I have a shutdown routine as well. And I think you can create some routines in this new normal, this new reality, that makes it where you have these personal disciplines. And don't waste the time, though. I mean, this is the moment that we all said we wish if I wasn't so busy, I would. Well, this is the time to go do that thing.
That's so good. I heard your wife, just briefly, she was on a virtual roundtable with my wife yesterday, and she was talking about how you guys had a little intense fellowship for a couple of days, and how y'all put that together, how y'all had a conversation. Can you talk to us just a little bit about how to make sure that we are managing our marriages well during this season? In fact, guys, I think this is probably the most important question, because the worst thing that could happen is you walk out on the other side of this and your marriage is broken. Your church is still there, but your marriage is broken. So how are you managing your marriage, and what advice would you give us to make sure we're managing our marriages?
Well, unfortunately, there's no new secret to that. The one thing that always is usually missing, and it is the single most important thing. Honestly, I think it's the single most important thing we do right now as church leaders too, and that is communicate. Tammy had no idea what my day was actually looking like. All she knew was I was in my office with a lot of conversations going on, and I sat down and I said, I'm not asking for sympathy. I just want you to understand. And I went through kind of, what's on me right now, how many calls I'm on, how many pastors I'm encouraging, how I'm trying to manage our own finances, how I'm thinking through the prayer service on Saturday and the Sunday service, and just kind of walked her through that. And then she did the same with me. I said, tell me what's on you. Tell me what you're feeling. And so I don't think there's anything other than that. One thing that she and I have always been very, very good at is we have a moment in every day where we stop and look each other in the eye and say, I need to know what you're feeling. I need to know how you're doing. And I need you to know how I'm doing. And, the Bible says in 1 Peter that to dwell with them according to knowledge. Well, the only way you can dwell with anybody is according to knowledge. If you can't empathize and understand, you cannot be a good friend to that person. And you cannot understand unless you ask questions, and ask the right questions and find out how they're feeling. So, I would say pick a moment in every day where you do two things, where you sit down and spend time with your spouse, and then you have to have a shutdown routine. And what I mean by that, you have to pick a moment in the day where the day is done. The day is done, and you just plug your phone in. For me, it's around 6:30. Like, I'm done with the day. I'm not taking any more calls. And Tammy and I go sit on the couch, and we'll get something to nibble on and, watch. I call it mindless TV. We'll watch Food Network or Jeopardy or, something that doesn't matter. Certainly not the news, and just shut it down a little bit. Let your soul rest. And then get up the next day and fight those battles again. And so, but if you're fighting from sun up to sundown and you're not communicating, this thing's going to eat your lunch.
Thank you, PC. We're going to stay on for a little bit. You're such a blessing to us, man. I really appreciate it. Before we jump off with you, we're going to stay on here from a couple of other guys, and feel free to ask any more questions that you have. PC, before we do that, when we cut you loose, would you mind praying over us?
Sure, absolutely. I'd be honored. Come on, guys, just receive this. Father, I just thank you for leaders. This is the time leaders need to lead. And I pray, God, for great courage. I pray for wisdom. I pray for prudence. And God, give them the ability to know what to do. You said, God, you would raise up the sons of Issachar who understood the times and then knew what to do. And God, I pray that it's not unclear. We are spirit-filled for a reason. By the Holy Spirit, God, would you speak to us, guide us, and to lead us into all truth. And let us keep in step with the Spirit, I pray. I bind every voice of the stranger, according to John chapter 10, every lie of the devil, every fear of the devil, every message the enemy tries to put inside of our minds through the news, or someone who's negative, or some statistic or data point, God. I pray, God, that faith rises. And Lord, I pray for the church to do exactly what you called us to do, Lord, that we would humble ourselves and pray, that we would take this serious and drop to our knees, God, and seek your face and turn from our wicked ways. And God, we fully expect that we will hear from heaven, and you will forgive our sin, and you will heal our land. And God, and we want to be right in the middle of it, and to lead the way you would want us to lead. So bless them in every way. God, I pray that you bless their churches, God, their people. God, give them health and strength according to Psalm 91. I thank you, God, that no plague will come anywhere near their dwelling. And God, you are rescuing us in this hour, and we believe it. We know it. We are going to the other side. We're in the storm, but we're going to the other side. You said before we got in the boat, we were going to the other side, and we know it's to be true. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, PC. And any of you guys who want to stay on, I got several other guys that are on. Phil Klein is on. Chad Beach had to get off because his kids went crazy. So all of us understand that right now. So, but I did want to add a couple of things there. And again, thank you, Pastor Chris. it was something I've been telling our team is anything that you have to do is not as important as who's standing in front of you. Anything that you have to do is not as important as who's standing in front of you. So when my kids are in front of me, my wife's in front of me, that's the most important person in that moment. So I've set up a little office. I have a little small, very tiny office in my house. And that's kind of where I'm doing my work from. Proverbs 25:15 says, patience can persuade a prince and soft speech can crush strong opposition. So in this situation, my wife and I have talked and we're communicating daily. She's heard my heart, just like Pastor Chris said. And just in marriage, when you show softness, it kind of crushes everything. And so she knows that right now. I know that right now. And so we're just trying to be soft. We're trying to be meek. Obviously, you guys know meekness is not weakness. It's control. It's controlled strength. So when I'm soft, it doesn't mean that I'm a pushover. It just means I'm not rude. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Phil, I want you to jump on here, man, really quick, because a lot of us are leading staffs, we're leading teams, we're leading volunteers. You are a genius. Focus 412. If you guys don't know Focus 412, Phil Klein, Phil and Grace, you guys are just unbelievable. I love you so much, both of you. You've helped us. In fact, when we walked through Hurricane Harvey, which was devastating for the city of Houston and our entire region here, Phil, you were in the boat with us. You restructured our entire staff and took us from marginally unhealthy in 2017 to within 1 week of implementing your systems, we went healthy. And I'm not giving a plug for your company. I'm just giving a plug for, my God, you're a blessing to me. And you're very, very knowledgeable. You have a mergers and acquisitions background, not just church. Your mergers and acquisitions background. And then you were in the trenches with Elevation Church for years with their campus model with Pastor Stephen. So I just kind of want you to speak to how we can manage our teams and manage our church, keep us afloat. If you don't mind, just speak to that for a few minutes. And if you guys have questions for Phil, he's a genius, full on, ask the questions.
Thank you, Pastor Jeremy. You're too kind. And thanks for having Pastor Chris on. It's brilliant. And I can say as a testimony, if you will, Grace and I are part of Highlands. And when Pastor Chris talks about, the consistency and keeping things normal, that's just been amazing for us to go online and feel like our church is still there, and whatever your expression of that is. But it's just been such a confidence builder to say, Pastor Chris is the same as he's always been. He's doing things that look like what he's always done. He didn't all of a sudden start some of these things. So I think that's brilliant. Thank you, Pastor Jeremy. And you have an amazing church, an amazing team. I think the things that, real quick, that I would say is, Pastor Chris talked about the uncertainty of like, hey, we really don't know what's going to happen, which I love the humility in saying, I don't have all the answers, and let's listen and learn. So in that uncertainty, I think we can get paralyzed, if you will. Sometimes some of us can get paralyzed in that. So one of the things that we use to move forward is to say, for the areas that you're uncertain in, plug in an assumption. It's kind of like a math equation. If you don't know the number, they plug a letter in and say it's X. So whatever X is for you, meaning what assumptions have you made about how long this is going to be and how deep it's going to cut, if any, and what's it going to look like when you come out of it. You have to fill in some of those blanks in order to do whatever you're doing, whether it be adjust your budget, inspire your team. You've got to pick some benchmarks. So one day you can't think it's going to be 6 months and then it's 2 weeks. None of us know, but make some assumptions and move forward. And you can always adjust your assumptions. Just like you adjust your budget, you can adjust your assumptions. I also love when Pastor Chris said, see it as an opportunity. You can feel the optimism he has for it. And that's a beautiful thing. And this is in addition to that. A lot of you all, I get the pleasure to serve a number of pastors, and the one thing that's out there is optimism, positivity, and charging the hill. So a lot of you guys get really fired up when something like this happens, which is a good thing, but you don't want to die on the hill of infinite opportunities, meaning, you can't, Pastor Jeremy said up front, we're doing the things we've been doing. We're just doing them in a different way. The how is going to change. The what the why and the what have to stay the same. And sometimes we get those three mixed in together, and there's so many opportunities out there. You don't want to die on the hill of infinite opportunities. I call it a filter. You want to
let me jump in here and just ask you this. What should we be doing? What shouldn't we be doing right now? From an outside leadership perspective, you're not a senior pastor. What do you expect senior pastors to be doing right now? Because I think some of us are, I know me, the first week, I just picked up the world and said, let's go. I'm going to carry it all myself. And I have an incredible team that has done amazing things, but a lot of guys don't necessarily have a huge team. What do you expect us to be doing? What should we expect ourselves to be doing so that we don't set expectations that literally just tear us down all the time? In fact, one of the things that I would say before I pitch it to you to answer that is a lot of guys are trying to do too much right now. You know, we're all called to reach Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world. And some of us don't actually have a calling necessarily to the uttermost parts of the world, but because we're getting so much content from other guys right now, we feel the pressure like, I need to put something out there. I need to do something. And I think it's overwhelming us. I know I've dealt with being overwhelmed. What should we be expecting from ourselves as we're leading ourselves?
Thank you. That's brilliant. A couple things. One is, I think, don't assume that it's all up to you to do, right? So last week, hopefully, 3 weeks ago, say it that way, 3 weeks ago, were you doing everything? I hope you weren't. I hope you had a team of people you were delegating to. I hope you were communicating the why behind the what. And you know, the why goes down and the how comes up. And all of a sudden a crisis hits, and we're like, we jump into the driver's seat and we've got to make all the decisions. We've got to get all the work done. You weren't doing everything last week. It doesn't mean you need to do everything this week. It means you need to continue to delegate things to your team. You need to, more than anything, you need to be clear and clarify. You're the chief clarity officer right now. Your team, even if you have 2 people on your team and 5 volunteers, I could do some quick math. That's still a bunch more people than what you can do yourself. So don't assume that all of a sudden in a crisis, you're doing a bunch of stuff. You should still be leading versus doing. I think the other one is be really clear about what it is you should be doing, meaning the simple thing. This is oversimplifying, but you shouldn't be doing anything today you weren't doing last week. You might be doing things differently. If your strength is outreach, then focus on outreach. But like if you weren't killing it in outreach yesterday, I don't know why you would go out and to try to build a dream center today. Like I'm gonna go out and I hear people saying things like, you know, I'm gonna lead this or I'm gonna lead the way in that. Like if you weren't leading the way in that, join up with somebody who is. So I think don't get off track with new opportunities. If they're in your lane, if you're doing outreach and somebody says, hey, we've got an idea on how to feed more people because we were feeding people last week, that's great. I think of it this way, you know, what things are going to build muscles that I can use down the road, and what things could I learn that I wouldn't learn without doing this that are going to help me down the road. And down the road is kind of the key phrase, meaning, you know, turning something on at full volume and then shutting it down 4 weeks from now, if this thing calms back down, I don't know how much help that's going to be to people. Put your effort into the things that you were putting effort. The last thing I'll say real quick is, I'm assuming everybody had goals January 1st, and the crisis didn't obliterate your goals. You still have goals. So I would say get your goals out, get them in front of you. I know it's a different circumstances, but your goals are still your goals. At the end of the year, I would hate for your scorecard to look like, you know, crisis 10, me 0 when it comes to accomplishing your goals. There's still the things you need to get done by the end of the year. So get your values and your goals out in front of you and try to stay as true to them as possible.
That's some of the best advice that I've heard, because I'm looking at myself. I'm kind of like looking at myself through that lens right now. Am I trying to do more right now than what I was doing 3 weeks ago? Boy, that's good, man. That is phenomenal. Thank you, Phil. Sean Nepstead, I think you're on here. I want you to kind of speak. You guys are doing some really unique things. You were portable for a long time. You went through really slow growth for a long time. You're kind of the master of don't quit in the dip, and a lot of guys are dealing with a dip right now. How do we manage through it? What are you guys doing there on the West Coast? You got a phenomenal church there in the San Francisco area, and I know that's a really hard area. You guys have been on lockdown a lot longer than most of us. So how are you walking through that? And then I want to hear from Wayne Francis in New York. So Sean, hit me up, man. Help me lead.
Man, love you. Love Pastor Chris. Love Phil and Grace Klein and the Bishop Foster. Appreciate you doing all this, man. Means a lot. Yes, I feel the blessing through the TV camera. I'm putting my forehead on the camera. I feel like there's 3 things that we moved totally into. I told our staff, I said, we don't do anything else but these things: crush online, crush pastoral care, and crush outreach. So every staff member, like Pastor Chris has said, is moving into one of those 3 areas. That's the only job descriptions we have right now. And your online experience has got to be good, because normally people, like, if they don't like your preaching, they're going to sit there. They're not leaving typically in the middle of a message. If you lose their attention in a service today, there's too many other services. They're gone. They're clicking on somebody else's. I'm like, stay put. Like, treat it like you're physically here. But run to pain.
That is good. Can I jump in and make a point? Guys, Pastor Chris blazed past it. Sean is pushing it again. I think it's important that you have service times scheduled online. It's something that we've done. Now, we added a lot more service times, but on Sunday, you can only watch our broadcast at specific times. It's every 2 hours starting at 7 a.m. By the way, that 7 a.m. time is killer. There was a ton of people on because it's early. They're up. They're watching from the bed, which is not where I want them to watch from, but they're already watching. But you set that time so that they know I have to watch it now, or I have to wait 2 more hours to watch it. Because if it's just on demand, that may be hard for you to do. You can hit our team up, or you can go online and our hopecity.com/virtual roundtable and see how we do that. But I think that's important that they set a schedule. Encourage your people. Hey, set a schedule. Get your family around. Watch it together. Stay on the whole time. Celebrate, stand, raise your hands. That's all good advice. Stephen Chandler put out some great stuff. Go to their website, Destiny, but he put out some great stuff that was advice on how to do this at home that we actually adapted and used for our stuff. Keep going, Sean.
That's great, man. Well, to touch on the Don't Quit in the Dip, that's actually the title of the book that's coming out in August, because it's just burning inside of me. There's so many dips that we have, and not people in our congregation, but we have so many seasons where it's difficult. And this is actually difficult, guys. It's a crazy season for a lot of church planners. We're working with so many pastors, and that's why I love your heart, Jeremy, to do these types of calls. I think the biggest thing in this is Proverbs 11:25 says, "He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." So a lot of people in our churches are focusing on stockpiling our own stuff. You know, I have to get toilet paper. I have to get pizza. I have to get stuff for my house. And we just think of us. And that's not how it's almost like the third grader, you know, who would cut in the line at the drinking fountain at recess. And he's like, I got to get refreshed. And we are feeling that unsettledness, that unease, that dis-ease in the church right now. Everybody's trying to cut to the front of the line. Like, I focus on me. I got to get refreshed. And God's like, that's not how this works. It's an upside down kingdom. You refresh others, and I personally would guarantee your own refreshment. And the fact that you're literally, like Joseph was in the dip, he was in the physical pit and several other emotional pits and everything else I won't get into. But guys, your destiny's on the other side of this dip.
Amen.
And I think we run to pain and get creative. What's great is that innovation is birthed in crisis. You think of some of in the last recession, Uber was invented, Airbnb was invented. I'm praying for divine creativity in this season. And people are like, I want the church to go back to normal. I don't think it's ever going back to normal. And I don't think that's actually a bad thing. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be online forever. That's not my heart. But I do believe we're coming out of this stronger, better, and more focused on how to reach people in a creative way.
And the thing is, I think this is where you can actually go through. Some of the guys are saying, how long is your service? Our service is less than an hour online. Our service in live is an hour and 5 minutes.
3 hours.
And we're looking at actually maybe even cutting some of the service time, just because people just have a harder time. Their kids are running around. They're at the house, the dog's in and out. And so we're even looking at cutting it a little bit more. My sermon will be a little bit shorter this weekend. So you can cut some of those things. Hey, Wayne Francis, I want to kick to you real quick. You're in a hotbed area there in New York, man. How are you guys handling it? And just so you'll know, we'll only take 5 or 7 more minutes, and then we'll be done. And I want everybody to jump over on the ARC webinar. It's going to be phenomenal today with Senator Tim Scott and Greg Surratt. So it's going to be great. But Wayne, tell us how you're handling it, man.
Hey, thanks, Pastor Jeremy. It's fun to talk a little while. It's been crazy because, as you know, I'm about 10 miles from the epicenter of where it started to break out here in Westchester County with the guy in New Rochelle. We had the National Guard come in. We were quarantined for a little while, and that was a big deal. And then, of course, New York City, it's just exploding every single day. And we have a lot of people that are working in the healthcare field, professionals that are dealing with this in a different way. So I do want to say, for all of us that have people that are working in healthcare, those are the people that we really need to care for right now. I know we're reaching out to a lot of people, but if you have any nurses, you have anybody that's a healthcare professional that's working hand to hand, we need to get in touch with those people and encourage them, because it's really dire. But some of the things that we're doing is we're partnering with agencies that are serving people that have been affected by COVID-19, particularly the elderly. So there's an organization in New Rochelle where we had the epicenter explode that we're working with called Hope. They're having so much trouble getting food to people that are locked in. The Department of Social Services called our church. We have a mobile washing unit, and we're leaving that out in the community so that people that are homeless obviously need hygiene right now. So it's a wonderful way that we're coming alongside. But basically, man, we've just been trying to bring joy. All of our Zoom calls, all of the Marco Polos, all of the text message. We are a meme culture right now, trying to bring some smiles to people's face, because everybody is intense. You can't go into a supermarket without gloves. You got to sanitize everything. It's nuts. So we've been deciding as a church to make people laugh and to make people feel a sense of joy. So
I think that's
kind
great.
of some of the strategy.
The joy of the Lord is our strength. I mean, I've been hit a little bit by some trolls that have just said, hey, why are y'all so joyful and laughing so much? But the joy of the Lord is our strength, man. And I think this is the season when we need to do that. I hope this has been a blessing to all of you guys. I've already got a yes from Craig Rochelle for next week, and a yes from Dr. John Maxwell. If we did this again, is this something y'all would want to do? If so, make sure. Okay, cool. I hope it's helping you, man. My whole heartbeat is I'm not trying to build something. I'm not trying to do something. I really just want to help people. And that's my heartbeat. So anything that we have that you need, a lot of our team is on here. Brad Stark is on here. Carla Delafamina is on here. Mitch Rose is on here. He's pastors, but he helps us a lot, and we help him. Anything that we have that you need, we'll give it to you. I know some of you guys pastor smaller to medium-sized churches. Maybe some of your worship team bailed. If you want to use our worship, it doesn't have Hope City on it. It's got the lower thirds, and we can give you from black to black, fade in, fade out. You can have it and then put your sermon on the end of it. I know that I don't want to sound pretentious, but whatever you need, we want to make sure that we're doing our best to resource you. I love you guys. I'm praying for you, and I'm believing God's going to do great things. Let me pray for you right now. Lord, I thank you for this group of pastors. I just pray that you'd strengthen their hearts right now, Lord. You know what we're all dealing with. God, I pray that you'd make their marriages stronger right now, God. I pray that they and their spouse, I pray that they would fall together and not apart, God. I pray for those that are single on here. I pray that they, even though they feel maybe lonely right now, that they know they're not alone, God. And I pray for every pastor who feels alone, remind them, you see them, I see them, we see one another, and we are not in this by ourselves. We are in this together, and we're going to make it through to the other side. Give us your strength. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you guys. God bless you. This will be back on the page, hopecity.com/virtual roundtable. I love y'all very much. Thank you for joining.